What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Alright, so I haven't really done a video like this in a long time, and in truth, this video is not my normal style, simply because of the fact that I like focusing on story arcs now and doing explanations and different concepts every so often. Also, that's because of the fact that I think I ran through all the good stuff pretty early on in my channel, and so I feel like I should have spaced it out more. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 most powerful non-cosmic beings from Marvel Comics, meaning we're leaving out cosmic entities. So like the Living Tribunal, Eternity, Infinity, the One Above All, they were all left out. The kicker about this is there's still some stupidly powerful like reality warpers and characters out there who are insane in terms of their scale of power. Now, this is actually to the second side of a coin. For those of you guys who don't know, Comicstorian had lost his voice for a while, and so he wasn't able to record a whole lot of content, and so he reached out to the weekly pool and said, hey guys, send me stuff. And we're friends, so I was like, yeah, of course, man, I'll send you some stuff. So over on his channel, over at Comicstorian, which you'll find on Thursday, you will see I guess the top 5 most powerful beings in DC Comics. So with regards to Marvel, this is kind of a mixed bag. And so starting off our list, I guess at number 5 would be the Scarlet Witch. Now, as a general concept, the Scarlet Witch is not one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe in existence. She was the most powerful being for a very short amount of time. She was very, very powerful during the events of House of M, when she created the House of M event. Now, the kicker to this is that she wields what's called chaos magic. Now, the funny thing about this is that in Avengers number 502 through 504, something like that, maybe 503, we had Doctor Strange, who was basically talking about the idea of Scarlet Witch. And Doctor Strange said, no, chaos magic does not exist. Chaos magic is something that's not true. But what we learned in the Mighty Avengers, I think it was volume 1 or volume 2, issues 21 through 23, is that chaos magic does exist, that there was a guy named Chthon, and that he was this elder god that basically ruled the world through the use of chaos magic, but his reign was so dark and it was so extreme that those individuals who were able to control magic at the time had basically sealed him away and then wiped his existence from the history books. And so as a result, chaos magic became something of a legend that no one knew about, no one really believed existed. So by the time Doctor Strange became the Sorcerer Supreme, it was considered nonsense. You know, it was considered an age-old concept that wasn't true. It was more or less on the line of like stories and different things like that. Now, while she was able to wield chaos magic, which is a fraction of the power that Chthon has, the Scarlet Witch was stupid powerful. When House of M initially happened, and after House of M ended, and she stripped 98% of the mutant population of their powers, initially it was believed that it was just the main Marvel universe, but there was actually a story, I want to say it was Beast, that had come out and said it after analyzing the multiverse. He came to the realization that the Scarlet Witch stripping 98% of the mutant population of their powers was across the multiverse. It wasn't just the main Marvel universe. 98% of mutants lost their powers across the entire multiverse in Marvel Comics. And that's the reason why we're putting her at number 5, is because of that one singular thing, that one singular point in her character's history. Now, if we were to take the entire history of Scarlet Witch and we were to put her up against a lot of people, she wouldn't make the list, not by a long shot. But because I wanted her to be on here, we're going with this one moment in her publication history. Now, coming in at number 4 on our list is Matthew Malloy. Now, Matthew Malloy is a character that I've done a video on. A lot of people have seen it. It's got like 1 million views or something like that. Like, you guys love it. Matthew Malloy was Brian Michael Bendis' creation, and it was really just kind of like a trump card. Matthew Malloy was originally a student that had been discovered by Charles Xavier and had the ability to warp reality on an extreme scale. He was beyond Franklin Richards in the sense that Matthew Malloy could resurrect the dead, but the kicker here is that his power to warp reality was not inherent to himself. It was basically his ability to draw on energies from another dimension and then use those energies for whatever it is that he wanted to do. The problem was he was unstable. He didn't know how to control his powers. He didn't know how they worked. And in fact, Charles Xavier actually blocked Matthew Malloy's knowledge of being able to use his powers so that he grew up not knowing what it was that he was capable of doing. Now, during the story, The Last Will and Testament of Charles Xavier, this basically focused on this. It focused on the revelation that Matthew Malloy was in existence, the fact that he couldn't control his powers, and how dangerous he had become. And so ultimately the X-Men were forced, with the only way way to defeat him to basically go back in time and prevent him from being born. That was the only way to beat him. His powers were that extreme. They couldn't defeat him by conventional means. They couldn't suppress his abilities. They literally had to keep him from being alive. They had to wipe him from the face of existence. Now, there were some people that said this is kind of lazy writing. I agree to an extent. But when we're going through a list like this, all we can really do is go on what took place in the comics. If we were to form our own opinions, and go based on our own individual thoughts, well then, it would create a whole different kettle of beans. But the fact remains here that with regards to Matthew Malloy, the fact that he was able to warp reality in such an extreme, he could resurrect the dead, he could bring himself back from the dead, the fact that he was so capable in doing the things that he could do, that he threatened all existence in the universe, ultimately meant that, or at least to me anyway, throws him in number 4 just because of the fact that he's so dangerous. Now, coming in at number 3, and this is actually a personal favorite of mine, number 3 is Mad Jim Jaspers. Now, Mad Jim Jaspers has a huge history, well, not really huge, but he's got a pretty significant history in Marvel Comics. So, winding back to the 1970s or so, whenever it was, we had Alan Moore and Alan Davis who were writing the Captain Britain stories. It was literally Marvel's attempt to branch into the United Kingdom with comic books. And so they said, well, why not give the United Kingdom their own hero and call him Captain Britain? The kicker to this was that his first adventure, or one of his first major adventures, saw him being transported to Earth 238. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, and those of you guys who are really familiar with numerical designations, bear with me for a second. For those of you guys who are new to Marvel Comics, alternate realities have numerical designations, and it just makes it easier to run over the story. Instead of saying like, the Ultimate Universe, we can say like Earth 1610. Most people say Ultimate Universe, but it's designated Earth 1610. The main Marvel continuity is Earth 616. Marvel just arbitrarily assigns numbers. Now, this is starkly different from DC. DC takes a more linear approach. So you have Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 4, so on and so forth. And then you have like Earth S for Shazam and so on and so forth. But the idea here is that the numerical designations help to differentiate the different realities from one another so that we know what stories or what timeline these stories are taking place in. Now, when the Earth 238 timeline, Mad Jim Jaspers was a guy with extreme abilities to warp reality. And what he had done is he had basically created a being known as the Fury. And the Fury was like this cyborg entity that could adapt to any power that was used on it. And, Mad Jim Jaspers used the Fury to basically kill off all the superheroes on that Earth because he didn't want any competition. He wanted to be the most powerful being in existence. And so because of this, because there were no superpowers, there was a group called the Omniversal Development Court, I believe. And the Omniversal Development Court served the purpose of basically making sure that the evolution of realities were all on an even scale, meaning that when mutants evolved in one universe, that they also evolved around the same time in all the other universes. And so because of the fact that there were no mutants on this planet in the Earth 238 reality, the Omniversal Development Court decided to basically jumpstart mutant evolution. Well, in response to this, Jim Jaspers initiated what was called the Jaspers Wharf. Now, the reason why we put Jim Jaspers at number 3 here is because the Jaspers Wharf was literally just an emanation of energy coming from him that basically spread throughout the universe, and it warped reality in the extreme. Like, it physically bent buildings, it changed people from solid to liquid forms. I mean, it created all kinds of different crazy things. The problem with this was that the Jaspers Warp was so powerful that it threatened to spill over into all the other universes in the multiverse. And so the only thing that the Omniversal Development Court could do was wipe his reality out. They had to literally eliminate his reality in its entirety to save the multiverse. Now, the story of Captain Britain continued on in the main Marvel universe in Earth 616, and we learned that him being assigned to go against Mad Jim Jaspers from Earth 238 was a test. It was basically him learning what it was that Jim Jaspers could do. And the reason why was because Earth 616 had its own Mad Jim Jaspers, who was more powerful than his Earth 238 version. Now, this ultimately led to a fight between, the main Marvel universe, Jim Jaspers, and the Fury, which had escaped, that destroyed universe and arrived in the new one. But the reason why I put him at number 3 is because unlike other people who can warp reality, where we see them, changing things or maybe modifying things or resurrecting the dead, Jim Jaspers actually changed the universe around him to the point where he changed his own physical structure. He made himself into a giant monster. He changed the landscape around him. He would alter the perception of beings around him. Like, for example, when Captain Britain walked into the office of the Prime Minister, which is where Jim Jaspers was residing, when he opened the door, he found himself in this massive empty space of stars and galaxies, and Jim Jaspers had taken on this weird, crazy form where he was gigantic. It was insane, the kind of things that he was doing. In Marvel Comics, we've never seen reality warping on a scale like that before. And so for that reason, I went ahead and threw him at number 3. Now, number 2 is the Molecule Man Owen Reese. Now, I imagine by this point, people are like, you made Molecule Man number 2? Like, 1, why isn't Franklin Richards on this list? And 2, who's number 1? Franklin Richards is not on this list because he's just not as powerful as some of these people. This shows you the level of power that they have. When it came to the Molecule Man Owen Reese, he has a weird situation. Now, I've got a video on him doing a full explanation, but of what use would this video be if I didn't tell you about him? So, within Marvel Comics, we of course have the Beyonders. We have these beings that exist beyond the multiverse. Now, we also left them out because they're like trump cards. It would be unfair. Like, they would easily be in the #1 spot, and it wouldn't make things interesting. So, the Beyonders, hailing from the Beyondverse, have insane amounts of power. They literally wiped out all the cosmic entities during Jonathan Hickman's run of Avengers and New Avengers. It was a sight to behold with that particular part of the story. It was incredible. But within the Marvel universe, so the different universes in the Marvel multiverse, we have what are called cosmic cubes. Now, cosmic cubes are basically wishing boxes, is really all they are. When a person creates a cosmic cube, they can just make whatever they want reality, regardless of whether it defies the laws of physics or not. But the way cosmic cubes work is a person basically opens a portal to the realm of the Beyonders, and they pull in a fraction of the Beyonders' power, and then it gets encased inside of a cube. Now, different realities depict these different ways. We saw that in Infinity War, that not every universe has a cube as a cosmic cube. Sometimes it's like a cosmic diamond or something like that, but it just takes on a different form. But they all pretty much serve the same purpose. The idea here was that with the Molecule Man Owen Reese, when he initially performed the experiment that gave him his powers, he had basically gone through the process of creating a cosmic cube. The problem here was that instead of the energy of the Beyonders going into a box, half of the energy went into him. The other half just kind of floated out into the universe until it became sentient, and then it became the Beyonder. And that's where the original 1984 Secret Wars event comes from. And that's why Molecule Man Owen Reese and the Beyonder are equal in power, because they basically are the same power source. They're basically the same thing. The reason why this is such a big deal, though, is because the Molecule Man Owen Reese is not limited by anything. If it exists, if it is something that is in existence, he can manipulate it. If it's composed of molecules, well, really, if it exists, because everything that exists is composed of atoms, which in turn make up molecules. And so he can manipulate the fabric of everything, and it made him wildly powerful. He was beyond the living tribunal. He was probably second to the one above all, if not equal to the one above all in power. He and the Beyonder went, toe-to-toe against one another when they were during the second Secret Wars event, which saw the Beyonder returning to Earth and so on. But before he was retconned, when his powers were reduced, it was insane. He was a multiversal threat. He was a being that could traverse the multiverse. He could control the multiverse. He could do anything he wanted to with his powers. It even got so extreme to the point that he didn't even want to do anything. He was like, well, if I can do everything, there's no point in doing anything. And so he just settled down with a quiet life. And that was it. He just used his powers to manifest whatever he needed at any one particular point in time. Now, #1 is a super obscure character. Unless you read the original Guardians of the Galaxy comics, which dealt with like the Guardians of the Galaxy in like the year 3000 or something like that, you would not know who this is. But the #1 person on our list is a character named Protege. Now, Protege is, this kid is nuts. It's stupid how powerful this kid is. With most people who have extreme abilities, their abilities are part and parcel to themselves. For whatever reason, Molecule Man Owen Reese has the power of the Beyonders, basically. Scarlet Witch has chaos magic. Franklin Richards has the cosmic control rod, or the powers of the cosmic control rod, essentially the power cosmic inside of him. Now, with Protege, it's not that way. With his character, he's part and parcel to a group called the Universal Church of Truth. In Marvel Comics, we have a being known as the Magus, and the Magus is like the evil persona of Adam Warlock. It's like Adam Warlock's arch nemesis, and he's appeared off and on. He was the main protagonist in Infinity War, different things like that. But the Universal Church of Truth was designed to be like this universe-wide church. The difference here is that this story takes place in the Earth 691 continuity, a whole different reality here. But when the Universal Church of Truth had come into existence in that universe, it was looking for a god to worship. The problem was that there was no one that could live up to the standards of the Universal Church of Truth, so they decided to make their own. And so what they did is they basically took all the powers, or I guess all the magics of these different races from across the universe, they molded them into a singular being, and that being was born as Protege. Now, the reason why Protege is #1 here is because within himself, Protege doesn't inherently have powers. Instead, what Protege does is he copies the powers of anyone he sees if they use them. And so it got to the point with this character where he was able to copy the powers of the Beyonder in the Earth 691 continuity. The Beyonder used his abilities, and then as soon as he used them, Protege knew what the abilities were and had the same powers as the Beyonder. It even got so extreme that the Living Tribunal stepped in because Protege represented an imbalance in the cosmos. The Living Tribunal stepped in and tried to defeat Protege, and Protege saw the powers of the Living Tribunal and had those powers. And so in effect, anyone that shows up and fights Protege using any measure of power will be defeated because Protege will know how to use them and how to conquer them with those powers. It's the most ridiculous trump card in the history of comic books. The result of this is that there was a Celestial named Scathan the Approver. Now, Scathan the Approver's weird. He's basically a way for Marvel to write themselves out of a hole. His powers are enigmatic at best. I did my Marvel hierarchy, and that was just one instance of, what it is that made Scathan the Approver powerful. But the idea here is that Scathan exists to judge situations. He's basically there to say, I approve or I disapprove. And at least it seems as though he has whatever power he needs to confine a situation or to bring that situation back to order. This is enigmatic, and it's just kind of out there. It's ambiguous at best. But during the original Protege story, Scathan the Approver had disapproved of Protege, and in turn had temporarily stripped Protege of his powers, which allowed the Living Tribunal to step in and confine the Protege so that he would basically be held prisoner for all of eternity. Now, of course, we know with Secret Wars, all that was wiped out and the Protege's never been seen or heard from again. So the Protege's probably non-existent here. But at the very least, we throw him in the #1 spot, or I'm throwing him in the #1 spot, because if a person has abilities and they use them, Protege will be able to copy them. It's nuts. But if you guys have suggestions, or if you guys have your own thoughts on who should have been on this list, feel free to post them down below. If you guys are like, no, Franklin Richards should have been on this list, Franklin Richards should have been there, then feel free to post that down in the comments. If you think that, somebody else should have been there, Doctor Strange should have been on this list, feel free to post that as well. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. And if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, be sure to hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Oh, follow me on Twitter, Comics Explained, @Comics Explained. Follow me on Twitter. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.